If you've ever received a data analysis test from a company, you know the pressure that comes with it. You're wondering, where do you start? What should you focus on? How do you answer it correctly? In this video, I'll walk you through the approach to tackling real data analysis tests that recruiters send to people. So we break down the thought process step by step. We are not really going to be creating visualization for this analysis. We are just going to do pure analysis. So if you're ready, let's get straight into the tutorial.
Whenever you want to do a task, make sure you familiarize yourself with the data set. There's no need to rush, okay? Take your time. So that we are working with this data set, the first thing is to check the columns of the data set so you know what the data set is talking about, right? And you can see there's also a sheet for data dictionary. Okay, so just get familiar with the terms, all right, so that when we are answering the business question, you know what column to reference. Okay, so let's come back to the data. It's the company name, the company type, postal code, company category, the company reference, okay, the country of origin, the company close dates, which is, I don't think we have, okay, we have few, okay, we have just a lot of missing value for that. That means maybe some companies are not closed yet. The incorporation date, the account's last made date, the 2020 turnover, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 turnover. So now that we are familiar with the columns that we have in this data, so you know what each column of your data is saying, then we try to do some data cleaning. Just check for any possible data cleaning that we have to do with this data set. So you're just going to do, I'm going to click on this A1 cell and do Control Shift, right arrow key and down arrow key to select the data. Come here to the data tab and then remove duplicates. So duplicate is one thing that can keep our analysis biased. So we want to make sure that we remove it. So I'm going to click on remove duplicates. All right, across the entire columns. All right, because the company name is supposed to be unique. We're using like unique values for the company name. So let's say okay. So you can see 30 duplicates found, it is removed, and then we say okay. That's it. Let us go to the business question 1. What are we solving? Our first question says that which sectors show the greatest increase and decrease in turnover over the year? According to this question now, it says which sector. So you know that number 1, we are working with sector. Number 2 is also saying increase and decrease. So we have to look for increments, decrements in turnover over the years. So we are also working with this turnover over the years, this column, all right? And then we are working with the sector. So we have company type, company category. So I can go back to the data dictionary to see. Can you see that company type is what they refer to as sector of the company? So now we know that we are working with this column and the turnover column for the yearly turnover column, right? So first things first, let's create a pivot table. I'm going to select this first cell. I'll just do Control Shift, right arrow key and down arrow key to copy everything. I was going to create a pivot table, but really look at this trick. So here we have summary for the company type down here. And if we had not checked and we had just created the pivot table, our data set will be like double of what it should be. Because you can say like this is the sum for this year, for this category. There's a summary section down here. All right. So that is how companies can be tricky. So whenever you're trying to solve these problems, you have to be very, very careful. So look at this now. We already have the summary down here. That means that if you want to create a pivot table, that means it has to end here, not where the summary is starting. But anyway, since our first questions is just asking us for the greatest increase and decrease in turnovers for 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, let's confirm that. So you can see 2020. So that's where we are at. So since that's what the company said we should calculate, then there's no need to create pivot table. So I have for the different categories, but just because they are tricky, let's double check that. So let me check how many categories we have in the data and confirm that it's the same number here. I'm just going to do now to know the highest increase and decrease is right here beside it. I can just do equals to, then I'll do the 2024 turnover for this category, for the current category. So that will be the 2024 turnover minus the 2020 turnover right here. So I'll do equals to sign. You can see it right here. So let's just drag this down. Okay, so now you can see the difference in turnover. So from here we can look for the greatest increase and decrease in turnover. So for that I could just use min and max function. Okay, so from this list I could just do equals min, and I'll just highlight this entire cell. So you can see the minimum is 160,000 pounds, and if I do equals to and I do max and I highlight this entire cell, you can see this is the highest one. So you can see that this is this value here, right? So let's trace it up. Is on this column. Let's go and look for the category that is. So that is the order category. The company type is under the order section. So I'm just going to put it up here. Let me just put it order. That's the company type for the minimum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a cell in between just to differentiate. So this is the max, and then for the minimum is this. So let's look for that minimum value. So this is the minimum value, is on this row. Let's check what row. That's education. So the company type with the minimum turnover is education, right? So they can just do minimum. So with this we have answered the first question, which says that which sectors show the greatest increase and decrease in turnover over the years available. So education sector now shows the greatest decrease in turnover over the years, while other sector shows the greatest increase in turnover over the years. So that will be your final written documented answer. So, recruiters can be very tricky. Let's just confirm that. Let's just come somewhere here. We're going to use sum function to confirm that the calculation for the summary we have down is correct. I would have just created spaces in between this data right here. Okay. I'm just trying to insert empty cells. So there's like a demarcation. So I'm just going to do equals sum if, open up a bracket. I'll continue it in the formula bar. And now it's asking me for the range. So the range will be the company type. So I'll click on the first one, Control Shift down arrow key. Can you see it ended here? Very good. So we can do comma, right? So it's asking for the criteria. The criteria is order. So we want to check it for the order category for the 2020 turnover of it to see if it's correct with what they have. So what column is it calculating sum for? So we are doing for 2020 turnover, and I'm going to do Control Shift down arrow key. But because there's space in between this is going to be a problem. And if we say we should start dragging it, can you see this is a very large data? It's going to take us time. But there's another trick to it, and the trick is, you see the data set is ending 50030. I'll just copy that from here and then change this to the range value to that. Okay, so now you can see it ended at the last point of the data. I didn't categorize all this together with it. So now we can press the enter key. When we press the enter key, you can see that the turnover for other category in 2020 is 9,485,498,000 and this. Okay, so let's just confirm that. So this is the other section. The first one is the 2020, remember. So 9,485,498. So that means that this value is actually correct. And this analysis is perfect. We can then say that we are correct. So don't be under pressure when you're working. You have to take your time and look for every possible way to answer it the best way. Look at how tricky this is. Do you understand? We could have made a mistake. But thank God we were patient enough to see that. For the first question, let's just imagine that we were not given this summary. How are we going to solve it if we were not given that summary? All I would have done for that first category was click on this first cell, Control Shift right arrow key, then down arrow key. Can you see it has highlighted everything? I'll come to the Insert tab and pick the pivot table. So I'm going to create a pivot table. I might put it in this worksheet or put it. So because I'm just going to show you how else to do it. So let's do new worksheet and I'll do OK. So now in this new worksheet now, we worked with the company type, okay? So we want to say the company type by their yearly turnover. So we can do 2020 turnover to the value, bring 2021 down, then 2022 turnover. Okay. Okay, so I want 2022 to move to the end of this thing. So it's aligned. So you can see, let's move 2023 next. So you can see it's not arranged. So 2023 is here. I want it to be on the last part. So I can just click on the drop down and move it to the end. So let me drag 2024, the last one. So let's do move to the end. So you can see that everything is properly arranged. So from here now, after creating the summary, you can see for order for 2020, still the same value. So from here, we can just now beside it, just do equals to, then you do 2024 minus 2020, enter. And then you can do it for everything and do the min and max that we did right here. So I'm just showing you the difference ways because your question might come in a different format. So this is how we work on this type of data. Let's move now to the second question. The second question says, what is the total turnover for farming broken down by year? So that means we have company type and then we have farming. So we want to know the total turnover for farming broken down by year. That's like the yearly turnover for farming. Remember, we have a summarized data down here, and then this is farming. So let's trace it out. So for farming now, you can see that the total turnover broken out by year is for 2020 is 29,604, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. So you can either answer the second question by drafting it out from here or just go to the new sheet we created. So I can just call this analysis. Okay. So I'll copy the pivot table. It's just like I want to duplicate it. So now the second question asked us to specify the total turnover for farming broken down by year. So the total turnover broken down by year. So we already have that, more like what we have in this first table. The total turnover, but this one is just for farming. So that means we don't need all the categories. We just need for farming. All I have to do is click on this drop down, deselect everything and pick only farming. And now we have, so let me remove this grand total first. So now we have the yearly trend for turnover for just farming, just as the question specified. The third question says, what is the least common month to incorporate a business? What is the least common month to incorporate a business? Is this true for all company types? So that's like 2-in-1 question. The first one, what is the least common month to incorporate a business? Okay. So for this, we know it's asking for months, obviously. So let's go back to our data set. So it's asking for incorporation months, basically, in some way. So in our data set, do we have anything? Okay. So we have something on incorporation dates, but we are not working with dates because the question is asking us for least common month to incorporate a business. So that means I'm creating a new column. And in this new column, I can call it incorporation month. So for this incorporation month, I'm going to try to extract the months from this date column. So I'm going to use the text function. So I'm going to do equals text. This is the value. And in what format do I want it? So I want the month extract of it. So I'll close the brackets and enter. Can you see 5 represents May? So this next one will be January. So I'm just going to double click. Can you see? So 1 January, 7 July, and so on. So let's come back to our analysis page. Let me just duplicate this so we can answer the next business question. So I want to refresh this pivot table first so it can now show me the new column I just created. Can you see incorporation month is now created? So for this, let's first remove everything that we have in it. Let me remove everything. So it's now an empty pivot table. So remember the question is asking for the least common month, incorporation month for a business, right? So now we have incorporation month. Let's drag it into the row. So we are just going to do least common. We are checking for frequency. So I'm going to drag this also to the value. So for the frequency now, okay, so this is because of those, I'm guessing, that's because of those extra columns we have down our chart. You remember the one down. So I'm just going to come in and remove them because these ones are for the total, the summary that we had. Okay. So now we have January to December. So if you don't want to look at it manually, I could just easily do equals to minimum to check for which one is the minimum value here. Okay. So you can see now that this December is the minimum value. So now we will answer the first question. You can just write it down here by saying that December is the least common month to incorporate a business. Okay, so we can type that somewhere here. And the second question is now that is this true for all company type? So how do we confirm if it is true for all company type? That means we have to inspect it by company type, right? So we can do it in two ways. So we can leave this one here just to show that December is the least month. So for this analysis, you might even take it further by creating charts just to show your findings. Okay, so you can just create chart and stuff. But I'm not gonna do that for this case. I just want to explain the analysis so you just understand the thought process and how to handle this kind of questions. Okay, so now the next question is to identify if it is like that for all the company type. So let me try to create another pivot table to answer that. Okay, so now for the company type, let me see if it's going to work in the rows. So I'm not doing just farming. Why is it showing me for just farming? Okay, so is it the same for all company type? Let's try to inspect that. Remove parenthesis. Okay, so now what we are going to do is remember that from this place we realize that December is the least common month, right? So we are now trying to inspect that. Okay, for this other categories, is it the same that December has the least common month? So now that we have the pivot table, I can just get the minimum value for each of the category. So I can say that if December is the one with the minimum value, okay, so I can just do equals to me, then I can highlight this, press enter. You can see 133. So that means for construction, December is still the minimum category. So I'm just going to drag this to the last category. 318, that means in consultancy is also December. For education is not December, it is 56. 56 is June for education. For farming, December. For healthcare, December. This is 55. So 55 is like for maintenance and repair, that's April. That's when they have the least common month. Okay, so we can further inspect it like that. So for transport and logistics also, it is July. All right. So now we can answer the question by saying no, it is not true for all the company types, right? So that means that the December is the least common month, all right? But it is not true for all the company type because some companies, their least common month differs, basically. So that is how we analyze it. So let's move on now to the last question. So the last question says that what other conclusions can be drawn from the data? What other conclusion can you draw from the data? We are particularly interested in trends over time, right? In trends over time and comparison between different geographic area. So talking about trends over time, you can see we have data sets in 2020 turnover. So we can check for the trend between these years for the turnovers. So let's create a pivot table. Copy this. Just duplicate. Okay. Let's let me remove this. Okay, remove this. So I have to just include the 2020 turnover. We have the turnover. So I'm just going to move these values from rows to column. Can you see that? So we have 2022 turnover to be this. I can come here and just try to create a chart. If you want, you can do that. Can you see? So you can just add this chart just to show the trend. Okay. But I'm not going to be creating charts. So you can format the chart anyways. I'm sure. So if you want me to create a project on in Excel, then you can drop that in the comments and we are going to look into that. So we can just have a chart and then keep formatting it till it looks our best. Okay. So for the question where they asked for insights on location as well, so we can check our data sets. Do we have anything on location? Yeah, so we have something on country of origin, right? Okay, so basically what we are just going to do is do the country by the yearly trend of turnover for the countries, all right? So now let me just, I don't know, should we duplicate this? I want to show the field list, the one that was here, the small container. Okay, so now I can just duplicate this, right? And then change it, right? So I could just add the column for the region. Okay. Okay, so now you can see the breakdown. So you can see that for some of the countries, we do not even have data points. Okay, so I would have created an heat map with this. I would have created heat map with this, but the data is not even properly structured. But let me just show you how I would have created the heat map. So what I would have done is I would have highlighted the values. Okay, so this is where I have the values. So let's just highlight it. Okay, so I'll come here to the home tab. You see conditional formatting here, color scale, and I can add a color to it. Do you understand? So this is green, yellow card. So if I click on it, you can see the part where we have the large numbers have green, yellow is just in between, red is like it is very low. So if we didn't have these extra spaces here, then it would have made more sense. Do you understand? Because there won't be these extra spaces, and I don't know if I should filter this out for the part where we don't have extra spaces. Okay, but for the sake of just answering these questions that we have, then I may want to leave it like this. So we know that there are some countries without turnover over the years, or you can just basically, this one doesn't have this doesn't have, so you can just click on this drop down and uncheck the ones that does not have. Let's stay strong with these ones I just did. Can you see? So if I remove this, and this, let's see what happens. So you see that the heat map will make more sense if you remove those ones, basically. Okay. So can you see that it's looking better the way the heat map is like shifting together? So if everything was together, it would have made more sense. So basically, yeah, we've answered the 4 business questions. So all you have to do is just try to, so I could just create a cell here, and then I'll just come here to alignment, merge and center, and just type in here my findings. So for this one, what was my findings? What was the question for this one? Okay, that's for the greatest, least, and highest something something that we answered in the data section. So I'm just going to type in whatever I want to type here. This is just an example. So I can give the background a color, maybe the part where I'm putting my answers, give the background a color and give the text something like a white color. Okay. So you see, so I can just have this highlighted part will just be documentation for the result. So I can just type in inside this column. And that is how we can answer this type of questions when we are giving for interview.
Data analysis test is more of considering your thought process, how you approach problem, and how well you communicate your findings. So whenever you want to, whenever you have a data analysis test, make sure that you start by understanding the question you are given, the business question. You clean your data properly and let your insights give you the answers to the business question. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to follow for more real world data tips.